problems.
Sorry.
Oh, thanks. With an eye towards advocating for reconnecting communities, which again, I'm sure folks in Detroit are familiar with. I know there's a few projects going on. But what you can see here is some of the sort of historical work I do. So I use a lot of historic aerial photography. And these are three. So what this is showing is a lot of some of the cities that I've done and sort of the typical types of matchups I do. So the before and after, highlighting in particular the impact again of the highways. Um, and let me show you Detroit. I'm sharing my whole screen here. So this is one of the types of animations I make. So this is showing the construction of 375 and 75. And then what I've also done is overlaid the redlining area descriptions on the top. So this is kind of cool. And again, the intent is to sort of show really how these highways divided. One of the reasons I started this project, I started it shortly after the Reconnecting Communities program was passed. It was part of the IIJA in Congress. Um, for folks not familiar with the Reconnecting Communities project, it was really the first federal program that gave money toward that addressed this sort of really the racialized history of highway construction, and then B gave money to try to fix it. Um, but when they announced this program, they really just kind of said by fiat, like they really just they gave a press release and said, you know, highways disproportionately impacted non-white communities, which as city planners, a lot of us are familiar with, and then obviously the communities that lived through this are familiar with. But the general public that's not necessarily a story people know. So what I wanted to do was really make that story clear. I'm trained as an architect and a city plan. I'm getting a PhD in city planning. So I wanted to use the skills that I have to sort of show that in a way that was very accessible. Again, with an eye towards advocating for fixing these problems. So what I do and what I wanted to show you was sort of my master plan or master GIS file for Detroit. So what I do is I always start when I'm researching a city, I start with the aerial photography because that's really a clean way or a really nice way to see what the city was like before the impact of urban renewal and highway construction. Um, I'll geo-reference that in GIS, obviously, so that's the part everyone here is familiar with. Um, Export that and then just add some like really basic color. I'm not trying to change what it is. I'm trying to be as objective as possible. But I find that just adding something like blue can help with the legibility of these historic photos quite a lot. And then that shade of blue is taken from um, the present day right there. Whether or not that's accurate, the shade of blue is probably different. But the point is really just to sort of get spatial awareness. So what I do is start with the historic aerials, sort of build up layers. So this is before and after, so you can see um, downtown here, obviously. So 1949, that's what this is. And then I can turn on 1997. So all these shape files are originally from JS, but then I just kind of spruce them up in Adobe. But it makes really clear, again, the point is this story has been told in books. One of the reasons that folks here are probably familiar with The Power Broker, it's about New York. Um, it's about the urban planning and history of New York, and it's 1,500 pages long. And it describes all these neighborhoods being destroyed, but it doesn't really show it. So I really got tired of telling people to read The Power Broker because it's 1,500 pages long. So I wanted to start this project to really, you know, show what happened. So you see, I assume this audience is relatively familiar with Black Bottom because, Wayne State. But you can see Black Bottom fully intact here. And then this is Hastings right here. And then, the highway cuts right down Hastings and completely destroys it. And then what I like to do is you can, this is another resource that I think folks might be interested in. These are the Sanborn maps, but this is something that I've been contributing to. It's these folks in Louisiana. This is basically a crowdsourced georeference of the Sanborn maps. So this is the Detroit. Here's Detroit, and this is the 1950 Sanborn map. So what I can do is, go and see. I can see like Hastings here. There's the old housing projects. I can see Hastings here. This is a little lower res because it's in Photoshop, but and then I can find Hastings. Here it is, and then I can see what the specific buildings were, um, and cross-referencing that with things like the Green Book, so you can find specific businesses. Cross-referencing that with just business directories, you can find a lot of really interesting things. So, for instance, um, one of the specific buildings, Hastings at Mac. Here is Joe's Records. I think I'm actually going pretty long already. So, it- just the point is, showing really how these highways impacted these neighborhoods or really destroyed them in some cases. Showing and trying to personalize it a little bit when you can find a specific business. I got in touch with Marcia Music, who's the daughter of Joe Van Battle, who owned this record shop, which is actually the first place, the first place that Aretha Franklin ever recorded. So there's actually quite a significant history here. Um, but I found this through, just looking at the aerials, what was destroyed, because I'm not from Detroit, and I'm not from a lot of these places that I'm covering. But just by looking at what was destroyed and then cross-referencing it with the Sanborns like this, um, you can learn quite a lot. And then another resource is the redlining maps. This is from University of Richmond. This is a little less fine-grained than the Sanborn, but you can see obviously the makeups here. So what I do in GIS is I export all this stuff, layer it, and use it to make these animations that are trying to show that the built environment is very much a result of human decisions. These aren't. I'm from South Florida. It's not necessarily relevant, but one day I was just driving. We were driving on 95, and I just was looking at the giant median, and on either side it like cut through this forest. And I was just saying to my parents, like, man, this is such a environmental disaster. And they're like, what are you talking about? Like, there's trees right there. And it didn't occur to them that like, yeah, well, they had to cut all that and they had to like level this and make this big road and make this big flat thing. So just for folks, for a lot of people, highways are kind of viewed as like mountains or rivers. They're viewed as natural. But I'm trying to show that they're really anything but. They're really, I mean, look, they're built in some cases within living memory. They're the results of decisions of institutions that have specific agendas. I didn't really get into the history of why the highways were routed through black neighborhoods. Follow, check out my website for that, because there is a sort of perverse economic logic to why they did this in the 50s and 60s. That's the history. I'm going to end soon because I'm going long. Other things I layer over is, this is the Bronx, but layering over noise pollution on the highways. You can see this is all public data from DOT. Some of it's been taken down in the new administration, but a lot of it's been archived. If you're interested in asthma data, for instance, that's been taken down, but Harvard has kind of put it back up, this consortium of folks, screeningtools.com. Uh, Last thing I'll say, this is all in service of trying to advocate for reconnection. These are some projects I've been involved with personally. This is the Bronx. But in reconnection projects like this, it's not really rocket science, but taking some of these highways, making them into boulevards, not necessarily like I know there's been some controversy over 375. I'm not super up to that or up on that, but I know there was some whatever. But boulevarding can be great. If folks have questions about that, ask me about it. But I'm trying to advocate for these, reconnect these communities. and try to solve some of these problems that have been around for decades. So that's where I'll end. See, I gotta try to.
Thank you so much. And super incredible project, and I'll put a plug out. Wayne State Libraries has a old insurance maps georeferencing station in the atrium if you want to go try your hand at georeferencing the Sanborns. So thanks, Adam.
Just that the yeah, yeah, and the act of georeferencing is really tedious. And again, I probably don't need to tell people this, but you learn so much about the place. Again, because I'm not from these places that I'm looking at, but the act of staring at it for ages really gets you familiar with it. So thank you so much for the opportunity. Thank you, everyone. I can't see the audience, but I assume there are people there. Um, but thanks, everyone.
Thanks so much. All right. Next up, we've got Pat about mapping Detroit elections. And oh, they should, I think. Is it gonna? Okay, cool. Is that still sharing? I think so. Morning, everybody. My name's Pat Sier. And yeah, I worked on a project mapping out data from Detroit elections. I swear the slides, I at least had a different font on the slides, so this looks real bare bones, but bear with me. It's fine. So folks probably know we just had an election, and I thought it was funny seeing it mentioned this is the highest voter turnout since 2013. It was like 20-ish%. That is still very low. But I think that tells a really simplified version of the story. Detroit's a big city, as comes up pretty much anytime somebody looks at a map of Detroit. And so I think it's important to get a more granular view of which neighborhoods that's happening in, where that's changing. And so that's where I got interested to put this project together. So I previously lived in Chicago and did something similar there, kind of mapping out every Chicago election that we could get data for. And so just put this up at DetroitElectionMaps.org. It does not have that many, but it really came from, I've done a lot of political canvassing, door knocking on my own, and you don't get to knock the entire city. It's just one person. You're typically hitting specific precincts. So seeing a result change for one election is one thing, but actually being able to get a sense of like, here's where I knocked, what did it change, if anything, I think gives a much more kind of active view of democracy and kind of what that looks like. So, oh yeah, the GIF works great. So it's a little easier than doing a live demo. So the site is pretty much, it's relatively simple. It's just taking as many elections as we could get a hold of. So right now this goes back to the 2024 primary and including as many layers as possible. I think a lot of times we'll just focus on the top line, mayor, city council. And I got to be honest, this is probably one of the most boring mayoral elections to possibly map, given how much of a blowout this was. So I'm kind of undermining my own point here. But I think you get a lot more variation in the specific city council districts. And then once you get into the precincts, kind of trying to understand how that's different. And I think that's data that's not typically super accessible for people. I don't know my precinct off the top of my head, even if I know my city council district, let alone folks not necessarily being engaged or knowing what their specific city council district is. So really wanted to get not just that high level mayor, but getting into stuff, working on adding some of the police commissioner races, which I think are hugely important and very kind of underreported in a lot of ways, especially with that level of detail. So then additionally, it's got just a quick address search feature because I think it's one thing to look at this big broad map, but people know their blocks, people know specific areas. So being able to see what the election looks like in that context adds a lot and also can change how you look at things. One thing that comes up a lot knocking doors is that signs don't vote. You might see a ton of signs for a candidate in an area, and that might not translate at all into what happens on election day. So I think getting an understanding of that and getting an understanding of kind of where your neighbors are at, what those conversations are, whether turnout's really high, whether it's really low, or whether it looks something a lot different than what you thought. So one big caveat, you might have seen the caveat at the bottom of the legend, but in terms of actually reporting on election data for precinct level, there is a notable carve out in Michigan state law saying that if you are a municipality with 250 or more precincts, which is namely Detroit, there might be one other, I'm not sure if Grand Rapids does, um, then you do not actually have to report early voting or mail-in voting by precinct, which is a really big caveat for any results here. So I think that's it's definitely it makes counting a lot easier. It makes analyzing it a lot harder. That said, they still do have districts they aggregate up to where it's instead of just a couple districts for the city, there's 30 tabulation districts. So working on getting some of that information so that even showing 3 different areas for a city council district is a lot more granularity than people can currently get. It's a big gap given that I think the majority of voting in most recent elections has been absentee, early, so some combination of those. So definitely a gap here. I think it's still important to know what the election results look like, but something we're working on putting together. If anybody has anything to do with FOIA at the city of Detroit, let me know. I have had a couple hanging out for a while. So in addition, so these results typically get taken on pretty quickly from the city site. And if you want to see trends over time, which is where I think this gets a lot more interesting, you need that data in kind of as far back as you can go. So I've been updating it on Detroit data, which is the fancy step and repeat here. I didn't know you got that. That's awesome. So yeah, to hopefully make that more accessible, use it in a format that people can take a look at, even if you don't consider yourself like a quote unquote data person. So trying to make that as easy as possible so that if people want to get a better sense of how elections have gone, they can get access to that information. And so, yeah, just for a quick piece on what the technology was, this is on GitHub. This is all kind of custom developed code. I'm cheap, so I don't have an Esri license. So this is all custom put together, but on basically just static files, pages that are stored there. There's no consistent server bill or anything like that. So it's available for people to remix. I updated my own project from Chicago to make this work. And yeah, that's pretty much it.
We had some of the like sidebar. Oh, I think so.
Right. There we go. All right, I think next up we've got Kelly, I think. With the city of Detroit. So let me, stop sharing. Where are you?
Oh, yeah.
There you are. All right. Oh, there we go. There we go. All right, take it away. Thanks.
Thanks. All right. Can everyone hear me? Oh, great. Thank you so much for inviting me to participate in today's event. I'm so excited to be here. Like, happy Detroit GIS Day. So when we heard about like this call for lightning talks, I was excited about it, but I was like, I don't really make maps. I'm a platform administrator for the city of Detroit, so I wasn't sure if that would be very exciting to people, but thought it might be something you would run into so at some point in your career. Let's see. So just what I was going to talk about is our City of Detroit Enterprise GIS team within the Department of Innovation and Technology, kind of what GIS looks like at the City of Detroit, and then just tasks involved with platform administration. So City of Detroit Enterprise GIS team. So we serve the City of Detroit residents by leveraging geospatial technology and data to empower effective city operations, informed decision-making, awareness, and innovation. So we're broken out into like 3 main areas. Like there's departmental services. We have members of our team that provide GIS support for city departments, do like longer projects and application development. There's another sector, geospatial technology, kind of working on emerging technology. We're starting a drone program. You may have heard of Detroit Street View, like where we drive our own cars around, our own city cars around the city, collecting oriented imagery and LiDAR data. Of course, that data all has to be processed, and there's also like image analysis. And then platform administration, just like administering ArcGIS Online and Enterprise, maintaining the enterprise software, and technical support and outreach for city employees using GIS. So what's available at the city? So in our ArcGIS Online, we call it the Enterprise Mapping Platform. We have 1,500 employee users. There's 116 authoritative feature layers available to the public that you can check out, things like bus stops, parcels, zoning. Also the open data portal, which is maintained by City of Detroit's data strategies and analytics team, allows the public to view, analyze, and download data. I saw that the data forum is tomorrow, and Zach Mannering from the city is participating in that, so he may talk more about that then. And we have 26 like on-premises servers hosting ArcGIS Enterprise components used internally, like mostly for editing data. So just how like the city is using GIS, like 16% of our users like are creating feature layers, configuring applications, sharing with groups. They heavily use ArcGIS Pro. There's a lot of GIS professionals embedded with city departments. This is kind of falls into that category. Then there's the editor role, like that's about 31%. They're maybe working with departments like our engineers or inspectors using field maps, editing feature layers. They have access to ArcGIS Pro Basic surveyors. So they're going around, maybe going door to door and submitting surveys via Survey 123. Viewers, like just accessing content they need to see within that are shared with groups or the organization. And then we have external contractors, like we're migrating those to like the hub community, but departments are able to bring in additional people to like view and edit their content through a partnered collaboration. So just talking about platform administration for ArcGIS Online. So on the left, the gray boxes are the same for ArcGIS Online and ArcGIS Enterprise. So we manage users, like have to create new accounts, transfer content, remove, and then it's just like all those tasks that you need to be an administrator for, like managing licensing, creating shared update groups, like so multiple people can edit the information, like configuration changes, creating collaborations with other organizations, and generating member reports. Then specifically to ArcGIS Online, many people are aware that like it runs on credits. It's a cloud-based system. We have to allocate those credits for analysis tasks, and then also track the storage usage, let people know if they're kind of consuming large amounts of credits. And then also tracking the software updates and issues, and then alerting users about those performance issues that may happen. Since it's not our system, we just kind of, we can't like do anything about those issues, but we can just let the user base know. And we recently completed a migration from built-in accounts to single sign-on. So all like 1,500 or have most of that have been transitioned. And then for ArcGIS Enterprise, like, yeah, we do have to maintain the software for ArcGIS Enterprise. So there's an initial installation, configuration, patching, version updates, like have to update the certificates, manage databases, rebuild indexes, And then plan for like future initiatives, like what are we going to do in the future? Like we can request additional resources from our server team that maintains like the actual like server operating systems. And then troubleshooting, like when issues pop up, kind of figuring out how to like get it to work again. We also like reach out to the users, user engagement and outreach, drafting and revising initial documentation and policies that govern the system usage, technical support, like which I really enjoy, like assisting users with signing in and using the software if they elevating to Esri support as needed. We promote training opportunities to help increase user knowledge. And we have a bi-monthly meeting to kind of share focused content, have departments present on what they're doing to create synergies and share like training topics. Yeah, that's basically it. Thanks so much for listening, and feel free to reach out if you have any questions.
So we've got Eric. Oh, there he is. Back. All right. Let me get your slides up. There we go. Oh, let me hide this. Thanks.
Good morning, and thank you for having me. So I'm not a data person, right? That should be, I think, the place to start. I'm here actually because we produce some data and Detroitography called us and said, hey, can we use it? So my name is Eric Welsby. I'm the advocacy director at Detroit Disability Power. So I oversee all of our political work, our policy work with the city, with the state, as well as all of our electoral work. And one of the really cool things we're So Detroit Disability Power, we're 7 years old now. And we're really just focused on dismantling systems of oppression, building political power in the disability community, and making Detroit the most accessible city in America. And while we've done a lot of great things, we still have a ways to go. So one of the reasons we focus really heavy on elections as an organization is about 1 in 4 adults in the United States has a disability. And here in Michigan, we estimate about 30%, almost 1 in 3 voting age people have a disability. So when we talk about accessibility at polling locations, right, we're talking about not a couple of voters. We're talking about as many as 1 in 3 in this, and we're focused here in Detroit because Detroit, Wayne, Oakland, Macomb, right? We're talking really about 1 million or more voters pretty easily. We did the poll audits we just did. There's probably about 2.5 million people in the communities we audited. Obviously, as I talked about earlier, not all of them vote, but we're talking about potentially hundreds of thousands of disabled voters. And there's a lot of laws on the books, both at the federal level and the state level, that do require that accessibility exist. So we've been doing these audits actually since 2018, and we've been growing the program quite a bit. Do note those 2025 numbers are very preliminary. My data team is going through the November data this week and trying to get it finalized. But we've been getting to more and more places to really see what's going on, and we've been really fortunate to have a lot of support in this. So what do we look at? We look at really 4 areas that the law requires. Right, accessible parking with clear pathways in the building. Can you get to the facility, park a vehicle, get out of that vehicle, and get from that vehicle to the doorway? Can you get through the doorway? Is there an accessible entrance? Once you're in the voting space, is there a functional voter assist terminal? The VAT is what we call it in Michigan. It's more commonly called, assistive voting technology. Is that there set up, ready to go? And is there a wheelchair height voting booth? So we go in, we send out auditors to sites on election day and during the early voting period to see what's happening. You probably can't read it, but that's basically all the questions we use to measure, are people doing what they're supposed to do? And actually, that's actually an out-of-date graphic because we made a change to a question. And I'm just realizing that. So, but what we found is, despite the alignment being off, 13% of sites were fully accessible, which means they passed in all 4 of those categories I just listed. We do take kind of a pass-fail approach because there's no such thing as it's kind of accessible. It's either accessible and it's accessible to everybody, or it is not. It's either incomplete, like there's no like, I kind of didn't follow the law, right? You did or you didn't. And so some people might feel that we're a little harsh, but the reality is, if I have disabilities and it works for me, it does not guarantee that the next disabled person coming in, that will work for them. So we end up with all kinds of data, right? Cool data. We have a map with a bunch of pin drops on it. I've got spreadsheets upon spreadsheets, right? They're great. Right. The map easily gives the geographic area we've covered. And this is the map from 2024 audits. So you can see there's a lot of polling locations in Metro Detroit. And then the data set is great. We share this data with clerks. We share it with researchers like Detroitography and just lovers of data. And one of the cool things is when Detroitography called and said, hey, can we use this data? I turned to our team and I said, like, is there any reason we shouldn't? And also, and this was when the new administration started taking down data. And I said, why are we sitting on this data like dragons? Like, we shouldn't hoard it. We should put it out there. So now our website does have our 2024 data set, our 2022 data set. Early next year, or probably around March of next year when we release this year's audits, that data set, really with the idea of there's no reason others can't use this. But the real problem is data, while it's useful for many people, it's not useful for voters. Right? A voter is not going to go to our webpage, pull up this spreadsheet, find their polling location, and then read through. I mean, right, most of us spend time in some big spreadsheets. It's awful, right? It's awful. And part of the reason I'm not a data person. If you love it, thank you for what you do. Your service is very much appreciated. So Detroitography and votedetroit.org took our data and made it useful for voters. Right? They took and made this tool at votedetroit.org where people can put in their polling location. It brings up then their location. It'll even map it from their address to that location. But my personal favorite part, which there's a lot of places you can do this. You can pull up, find your polling location, find the hours, how to contact your clerk. None of them have this button, this check accessibility button. And this is where our data lives, right? In a useful format for voters. So when they're looking, oh, where am I voting at? What are the hours that it's open? They can also see what potential issues may I have when I go in to vote. And so here on the right is what it looks like, right? And this is our data where basically they've taken and they put our survey responses and explanations. They can see it was evaluated. So you can see were there clearly marked accessible parking spots. Our surveyor put no. And then there is the explanation below. They said there's blue lines, but the signage wasn't the greatest. It might be a little harder, confusing to find, right? And there are very specific rules about what actually makes an accessible parking spot in compliance with the law. And so they can go through and look at these things. So, if there isn't good accessible parking, and let's say they have an accessible van that needs that parking spot with an aisleway so that a ramp can come down, they're aware of that and can plan accordingly, right? So voters can then, before the election, figure out, am I potentially going to have issues? If they are, they can reach out to the clerk. They can, right, and there are provisions for clerks providing accommodations. They can choose to vote absentee if they're worried about those concerns. But it empowers voters to decide what's the best fit for them. And they may want to vote in person, but might say, and the site that I happen to choose here, Detroit Lions Academy, is actually a very, very troublesome site. Has some major infrastructure issues outside of the parking lot, entrances, and things like that. It happens to be the one closest to our building. So that's why it pulled up what I put in our office address. But there's variation. We have some sites that are very good, but we do have some that are very troublesome. So if you do look at this one, you will see a lot of red. There are some with a lot of green on it. So if you're interested in this, our website, DetroitDisabilityPower.org/poll audit, where you have our reports from 22, 24. In Marchish, you'll have the 2025 report. We'll be doing audits in 2026. So in March of 27, you can come and get the 2026 report. You can also get those data sets if you like data. And it has the way we measured. It's got our auditors' responses. Really, the only thing that isn't there is we do anonymize our auditor information, just for their safety and protection and all of that. But then if you want to actually see our data in action, go to votedetroit.org and you can click through. If you live here in the city, but you can go see what are the potential access issues at your location. So yeah, that's kind of all I have as a non-data person. I really do appreciate though, that we have good data people here in the city who call people like me and say, hey, I can make your data not just be a spreadsheet that nerds look at. Me being a nerd is part of this, right? That it can be something that an average voter can use. And I think that's really huge for all of us to be thinking about is, we do a lot of great things in many different areas, but do we take that next step to make sure it's actually useful for people that it's impacting? Obviously, the work you do that may vary, but for us, talking about making sure Detroit is accessible for disabled voters, it doesn't do any good in a spreadsheet that no one's going to see but me and nerds, right? It's only going to do good if voters can actually have that information and use it to make their voting plan. Use it to put pressure on the city, on the clerk, on the Department of Elections to address those issues, right? So that we can become the most accessible city in America. So thank you.
All right. I think we also, Victoria. We have a special guest from, I don't know how we say the office anymore. City Council President Mary Sheffield's office and Mayor-elect.
All right. Well, nice to meet you in
Good to
person.
meet you too. Thank you so
How you guys doing? Awesome. Happy GIS Day. It was really nice to learn what that meant. My sister was very excited to learn I'd be coming here. She's an engineer, but anyway, you guys didn't ask for that. This is a document from the city of Detroit, specifically from our mayor-elect, Mary Sheffield, who's currently still our council president. And I'd be happy to read it. On behalf of Detroit Mayor-elect and City Council President Mary Sheffield, it's my honor to present you all with the Spirit of Detroit Award in celebration of your 13th anniversary. This award recognizes your outstanding service through community-centered cartography, open data leadership, and dedicated support for Detroit's neighborhoods. Your commitment to empowering residents with accessible mapping tools has strengthened community voice and advocacy across our city, and Detroit is better because of your vision, innovation, and love for the people you serve. It's signed by our council president and all of our members across all districts. Congratulations and happy anniversary.
Yeah, thanks so much. I forgot to know this is our 13th year of existing. We try to talk about, we focus on service-oriented cartography. So I was really thankful that when I emailed Eric and was like, hey, can we do stuff with your data? He was really interested in what we could do. And that's always been the goal. We don't, GIS Day is free. All the tools we build are free. We don't make a lot of, we don't get a lot of funding to do the work that we do. But one exciting thing I will note is if you are in, I think this audience might be a good, if you are in the kind of community engagement space or community development space, we did just get funded by the Ford Foundation to do, we're calling it the Detroit Civic Census. So working on updating kind of the directory of who's working where in the city. Because right now, the last time that was updated was like 10 years ago. So we're trying to make sure we have a good directory of where all those place-based groups are. So we can do things like improve accessibility at polling places, or get more people out to the polls, or make sure when there is a community grant opportunity, it's not just the certain people who know people who get to apply, but it goes out to the whole ecosystem. So yeah, again, that's our first lightning round. So I think we can take a quick break before our 11 o'clock round. Please enjoy some more coffee, pastries, etc. And we'll be back here in about 8 minutes. Great. Why is that so loud? All right, we're gonna get started with round 2. And Seth from Regrid is gonna kick us off. Good to go. There we go. Thanks. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Seth Archambault, a software engineer from Regrid. And just for this 10 minutes, I'm just going to show you how you can use the Regrid mobile app to better have agency in the world around you. We did this, okay. Let's see. I'm just going to hide this. Yeah. Was it high? Yeah, oops. Aha, okay, okay. All right. So who's Regrid? Well, we say we are the parcel people, bringing the actionable unit of geography to everyone. And why do we say that? Well, parcels are like made up of property outlines and property data, and it tells us who owns the world around us. So if you want to have some agency in the world and make some impact in some part of the world, you have to know who owns it. Okay, so Regrid's made up a bunch of different parts. We've got the web app, we've got the data store, we've got enterprise. I am responsible for the mobile app, so today we're going to talk about that. All right, so if you were to hear a mobile app that could help you see property data, property outlines, who would you imagine this could be? Someone could find, okay, who would you imagine the person, yeah, who would get the most value out of this? Like, can you just like shout it out? Like, what's a job or a role? Real estate. Thank you. That is the #1 thing that I hear when I tell people what I do. I'm like, they're like, oh, that sounds like it'd be very useful for real estate. But and that's definitely true. You can definitely use it for that. But what I want to get across today is that like parcels are way more than real estate. So what else can you do with parcels? Well, I'm going to make the argument here that you can use parcels to understand power. You can use parcels to uncover impact, and you can also use them to organize. And so we're going to go through those 3 things, and then at the end, I'm just going to give some kind of an outline of just how that's been done in the city of Detroit. Okay, so understanding power. Get this. Okay, so here we are. This is on the east side of Detroit. Here are some parcel outlines. We're going to turn on the owner layer and now adjust the screen a little. And you can now just kind of, go over the city and just see ownership. And this is cool because, you start to see repeat names, and then it gives you some awareness of like who owns a bunch of properties in this area. And yeah, that might give you a sense of who has influence in this area. So let's tap a parcel, and this is just a random parcel, just an example parcel. You can see we have a lot of data on this. We have ownership data, property sales and value. We have lots of stuff, but the main thing I want to show you is back up at the top with ownership data. And right next to the owner name, we have this little teal button with the 15 on it. If you tap that, you end up seeing all the parcels that this owner owns. And from there, you can kind of make some inferences. If they have a big cluster of properties in a certain area of the city, you might, be able to kind of show that they have more influence in that area. And that's going to be important if you're trying to like make some impact in your arena. You need to know who has power in that area. And of course, you can go from each of these and look at more details for each of their properties and jump back and see them all. All right, so that's for understanding power. Now for uncovering impact, we're in the same neighborhood on the east side. We're going to turn on the wetlands layer here. And now we see this blue line that exists on the map, and we can take a look at that. We'll turn off owner just to clean up the interface a little bit. And we'll follow this blue line on the way here. And we see it's a riverine R2UBH, which is an upper perennial unconsolidated bottom that is permanently flooded. In other words, a canal. And it connects with the Detroit River. And connects with the Detroit River. It goes all the way up Alter Road, which is a road with some history. It separates Detroit from Grosse Pointe. And now we're going to see what is the impact of this. So here we can see a much different map. We see that the two sides of the road are not equal in this way. And if we zoom in, we can see that on the Detroit side of things, we have Zone AE, coastal floodplain. And but it's different if you go over to the other side of the canal. Over in Grosse Pointe, if we zoom in, we see that this is Zone X, area with reduced flood risk due to levee. So that means that there is a bank, a slope on the canal that protects one side of the street from flooding and doesn't provide that same protection to the other side of the canal. And of course, Alter Road has a lot of history in Detroit. There used to be walls along Alter Road, separating Grosse Pointe from Detroit. And this is not a wall, but it is something that impacts people on more disproportionately on one side of the street. And why should one street decide who gets more protection from flooding than the other? All right, so we've looked at how to look at power, how to uncover impact. And lastly, I'm just going to go into a little bit about organizing. Who has ever had a landlord who was not really great at solving their problems with their properties? Okay, we've got some hands, great. So I'm just going to show what you could use the mobile app for this. First off, let's say there's an old car on the land. We're going to drop a pin here and just drop it right on this old car. We're going to say that has been on the land. It hasn't been hasn't been removed, and it's a nuisance. And then we're going to also add a note. So say 6 months pass and it's still there. So we're just going to note that it's still there, just as kind of a note to ourselves. So let's take a look at this parcel. One thing we can do with the parcel is, let's say this is where we live. We can follow the parcel, which will let us know when there's updates to the data. So if the ownership changes, it's also really good to check out your owner, make sure they own the property. Also, we can see they have 2 properties. So let's check out the other property as well, and we can follow that as well. And now we have 2 places we can go to try and knock doors and try to connect with tenants who may be experiencing similar issues. However, here's my favorite secret feature here is this view on open corporates button that we have right underneath the owner name. If it's an LLC, this will appear if they have multiple properties. And now you can tap on view on open corporates to reveal some more information. This will bring you to opencorporates.com. It has nothing to do with Regrid, but it's a really great website. It can give you information on if this corporation has certain agents or locations that you can then use those to try and track down other LLCs that might be related. So let's say that we found another LLC that's related and it's right up here, and we're going to follow that too. And that's just an example of how we now have this little map of these little pins on the map, and we can go door knocking and trying to connect with our fellow tenants who might be experiencing very similar situations. And hey, maybe we can get together, have a meeting, and build a little power, and have a better chance at getting better living conditions. So that's it. in the city, I just wanted to talk about very briefly just how the app has been used in Detroit. We have a surveying app, which I didn't get to show today, but it's like a canvassing tool that allows you to, number one, you can put a bunch of data into it. And so Coalition for Property Tax Justice did some foreclosure protection actions like this, and so did this neighbor to neighbor campaign. And so you go around, you can see a list of everyone who's at risk of foreclosure, and you can talk to them, collect data, but also give them resources so they can get out of that situation. And so here was an example of a quote. Met a young man and his family who were renting. They had no idea the house was in tax foreclosure. And so this was a way of getting people resources and getting them the information to do something about it. All right, so that's it. Please check out the app and let me know your feedback. Really interested if you have ideas for other features that would be helpful along these lines. And thank you very much.
All right, next up, we've got Billy. The super exciting project, I think. Oops. Just open up your, I don't know if this goes full screen. Let me give it its own time. Is there a, oh, there we go. Present mode. Oh yeah, sweet. Oh, you know what? I forgot to share though. Is it? Too many. There we go.
Right, good afternoon. My name is Billy Mark, and I am a multidisciplinary artist who lives in Detroit. And as part of my practice, I often work with technology to create place-based stories, place-based poems, place-based, a bunch of fun stuff. And this year, somebody was like, "Oh, you're familiar with GIS?" And I was like, "I am not." And they're like, "Check out ArcGIS in the story map." I was like, "No!" So I spent like 40 hours just doing a hardcore deep dive and figuring out what the story map is and what it can do. And so that was kind of my introduction into this world of GIS. And so super happy to be here today. What I wanted to talk about briefly today was deep mapping with sound. And let's move. So what I love is that I don't have to really talk about deep mapping with this community. But when we look at deep mapping, it's richly layered representation, and we often think about it. Well, I'd often talk about it visually. But what I have been doing as part of my practice is working with sound maps. And sound maps using the echoes.xyz platform allows us to create layers that people can experience as they use this app and they put their earphones in and they walk through the city. We can use like the map box to create maps that people experience the layers of sound. So yeah, hopefully we can just kind of go through this today and look at ways in which the sonic world also offers opportunities for layering. So what is a sound map? Here we have the picture of the map box, where basically sound maps use GPS technology to create fields on a map, and that's on the creator side. On the what is it called, the platform, not mobile app, but the web app. So you have the web app, and you can create and you can compose on the right side here. Now over here, the person who is walking through the neighborhood is using the mobile app, and so as they walk through it, it activates the GPS, and you've attached sound files as you've composed these circles or polygons. You attach a sound files there so that if you walk through, it is so lovely. The sounds open up around you. You get to walk through the podcast or walk through the poem or walk through the story. So let's move forward. So how does it work? So like I said, you can use like circles or polygons. I won't go this deep into it, but there's a lot of really great features. Simple ones like if you make a circle, do you want it to resume when you go? Do you want the audio to resume when you come back into the circle, or does it have to restart from the beginning? Because it could be frustrating if you were like 20 minutes into something, you walk out and then you're like, okay, I guess this is what I'm doing for today. I'm gonna go through this again. Some fun features is there's also tempo sync. So if you have multiple circles or multiple polygons, and let's say they're at a certain BPM, you can then connect them so that you can walk through these things and experience music spatially with your body. And what I've really had a fun time exploring is you can add an ambisonic files. Ambisonic is 3D audio. So you can use 3D microphones to go into a location, record around you, and then upload those files onto the map so that when people walk at that place, they are here a 3D experience of the sound. And if you have Apple headphones, some that now have those head tracking. So if you have a person speaking here, you have a person speaking to your right, you have a person speaking behind you. As you're in that location, you move to the left and that person is now behind you here. And then as you move over here, the person is over there. So that creates a lot of really fantastic opportunities for these layers. All right, so now let's make, you guys look at this, let's make some deep layers. All right. Let's see, I want to go through let's just like 4 different projects that I did and how each one of those used kind of one layer, one idea, one primary layer and idea. So like I said, so here's the history layer. Gloria grew up on Blaine Street, and her house was right to the left of that 4-unit building. It is no longer there. We gathered together the people who live on Blaine Street to hear stories about her house, to hear stories about that block. And if you see in the middle, there's a microphone, one of those 3D, it's called an ambio microphone. We set that in the middle. And now these 2 dots, the first circle is where that circle people are talking, and then that other circle is where people came in to do have a conversation where the house actually was. And so if you go there right now, you will be able to put on the earphones. And if you have, this is not an Apple plug for Apple pineapple. But if you pay $199 and get the AirPod Pro 2s, then you can listen to Gloria, and when somebody asks a question, you can really turn your head and listen to them there. So that's history. That's a way that you can use history as one of the deep layers. Next is ecology, Eliza Howell Park, Sidewalk Festival, commissioned myself as a part of the Detroit Sound Mapping Collective, which is an open collective of sound mappers, to come into Eliza Howell Park and basically listen to the park, listen to what makes sound in the park, to be inspired by those. And the 5 composers created music based on that music, but also visually, the way that, as you can see here, the way that the composition was done was by looking at the landscape and by working with the landscape and by finding out how to create these fields in relationship to this place itself. So that's ecology, it's another layer. And the stories. You guys ever do projects in which you're like, man, it takes me like 10 minutes just to talk about this project. This one I'm going to try to say in like 30 seconds. So on the west side, you have the north end. Bill Harris, who's an incredible writer, actually was a professor here for many years. He wrote a story about 8th graders growing up in the 50s in the north end. I was like, dope. Let's put that in the sound map. And So that's on the west side. And there's, if you guys know, there's this Woodward is this big divide. And so let's go on the east, excuse me, that's on the east side. And on the west side, actually, let's work with some 8th graders right now. They'll make their own sound map. They'll write the story and then they'll make the music. And so they'll have theirs on that side. And then Marion Hayden, who's this incredible bassist, did the music for Bill's piece on the right side. And so you just have 2 stories kind of separated by geography and time, but still sharing stories of how these young folks are connecting to their communities. So stories is another layer of the deep mapping. And finally, I wanted to wrap up with music, as I like how we spent all this time. You can use music with audio files too. Isn't that crazy? But so this, what we did here is because, and this is actually a really great example of layering, if you see how some of those rectangles get progressively darker, that's because we've layered those. Like one is the base layer and then kind of created layers moving inward. Basically, it took an African rhythm that was very complex, kind of created like multiple layers of it so that as you walk through it, it begins simply. And then as you as you continue to walk through it, it becomes more complex. And the same thing, the circles are melodies. Again, took a melody, did that same thing as well. So the idea here was that our bodies become the composers. And so we said, you know what? Why don't we bring some dancers in so that the dancers can compose with their bodies? And one thing about this technology is that sometimes you have your headphones on and you're walking through by yourself. So what we wanted to do is get some dancers together. We gave one of them the phone, which served as the mobile identifier. We put a transmitter on that one. And then the other 4 dancers had headphones with receivers. So they all could listen to the same thing at the same time. And so then wherever that group improvised and went is where the music would be. So if they wanted to stop in this place and dance for a while, then they would do that. And so I'm going to wrap up here. And for these last 45 seconds of my talk, we're just going to lastly, I know that feels like it wants to end right there, but lastly, I have some books for the sound maps that I've made in the neighborhood. I've got a bunch of them there. I'll just hand them out if you guys want some. And yeah, I'm super happy to be here. Thanks for inviting me. Just imagine kind of what I've been exploring is on ArcGIS, where you have the story maps, and you're able to kind of scroll down through those. Right now we're working on the place where you can zoom in, you get that, it shows like the big globe and you're like, oh my God, I'm zooming into this specific location. It's so exciting. But then to be able, right now we're working with spatial audio in videos. So we're going to locations and shooting 360 videos and having 360 audio and really trying to find ways to really kind of bridge this gap between this kind of lived experience of the map as a score and the kind of the larger ways of understanding and using data to understand stories as well. Thank you guys so much for your time.
Next up, we've got Cass. Talk about. Oh, did you have? slides also? Just the site. Let me bring that up. Oh yeah, there we go. Share. All right.
Cool. So my name is Cass. I work at Community and Home Supports where I do homeless outreach. All of my clients are experiencing unsheltered homelessness, meaning that they are living somewhere not meant for human habitation. So a bando, literally on the street, a car, things of that nature. I do basic needs, vital dock restoration and housing navigation. And when I first started my job 2 years ago, I realized I didn't know where anything was. And the clients are going to be in crisis mode, especially if this is their first time ever experiencing homelessness. And they're going to expect me, their case manager, to be able to tell them where's the soup kitchen, where's the respite, where are the shelters? And I had no idea. So I also, when I started, was really bad with directions. And it turned out that putting navigator in my job title is kind of what I needed to like get it together and figure it out, because I've gotten much, much better at navigating around the city since doing this. But that was kind of how this was born. I'm hiding some of these layers so I can explain this a little bit, because she's a little bit busy. My full-time passion project here. This is not in GIS. This is a custom Google map. Anyone can do this. It's completely free. All you need is a Google account. And the accessibility for that was huge to me. A lot of times I will show clients how to use this and text it to them. Or if they don't have a phone, I will show it to them on my computer and we will sit down and say, where are you usually? Where is your spot? And we will map and like write down where things are so they can get there. So the unsheltered homeless is who I started targeting first, and it expanded since from there, because more and more people who were low income or just needed a little assistance started to rely on this, and even other case managers. And I also found myself expanding a little bit into like Ann Arbor and Ypsilanti, because a lot of times, especially with our youth, they might have a friend who's going to school out there and they'll be like, come stay with me. You'll blend right in. No one's going to know. My roommate's cool. And then they end up homeless out in Washtenaw. So I've listed some respite and homeless centers and shelters and stuff there in hopes that they can go there and tell them I'm experiencing homelessness and get the help that they need. But part of why this is important is because it highlights all this. So when you click down like this, any library or rec center I have listed as a respite center, because you can just go here and exist. You don't have to pay any money. They're not going to give you any crap for it. And they might even give you some resources. I also listed every single homeless shelter in the city. You might be thinking, that's not enough. It's because it's not. And any requirements that they might have. And also I explained in all of these what a code blue is, as well as a code red. For those who are not familiar, this is an emergency situation. A code blue is when the temperature is 20 degrees Fahrenheit or less. People will die if they sleep outside. If a client calls me during a code blue, it could be at 2 a.m. I'm going to go get them and bring them to a shelter so that they don't freeze to death. And if they don't want to go, because spoiler, shelters are not very pleasant places to stay, we will try and prepare them for the weather as best we can. But putting this disclaimer here, and a code red is of course when it's too hot and people will suffer from things of like heat stroke, dehydration, things like that. Shelters cannot turn people away in these circumstances because they are emergency situations. And a lot of times people don't know that. So putting this here and explaining like not only what it is, but what it means, and that typically you need a referral, but not in this situation. It's important for people to know. It puts the power in the hands of the people. It is a very scary situation to navigate, and being able to understand that is important. I've also broken down different kinds of places to get food, showers, or to do laundry, all of which is for free. So all of these soup kitchens here, I expanded a little bit into downriver too, all will feed people, and it shows you exactly where it is, when they're open, what times, how to contact them, do they speak other languages, are they LGBT friendly, can you walk in there and be very obviously gay and face no problems. Sometimes I don't know, and we just got to kind of take the chance. We also have Project Wave. I always tell clients, please click on this calendar link. I don't always have time to update it, but this is links right to their Google Calendar. So we can see today they were at the First Presbyterian Church at 8 a.m. sharp, where they do these free pop-up showers. We also have shelter referrals for both Detroit, Wayne County, and Washtenaw, so that people actually understand where to go and how to access these things. So I could physically go to Cass Community and talk to a person and explain to them what my situation is to try and get a shelter referral. These places that do food, shower, and laundry, same thing. Location, the times that they're open, all that jazz. So I know where to go and what I can do there, as well as the informal warming centers that are drop-in shelters. And then the McKinney-Vento referral form. This was the begrudgingly passed by Ronald Reagan Homeless Assistance Act that went through in 1987, where this effectively says education is a right, not a privilege. Every child has a right to get to school. So for a family experiencing homelessness, we have them fill out this form, and the school has to send a cab, and they will come to the bando and pick up the kids. They'll come to the shelter. It doesn't really matter, and get those kids to school because they have a right to go. We also then cover healthcare and harm reduction. This is free Narcan. There are 163 places throughout the area in Metro Detroit and Detroit at large to get free Narcan. Some of them also have fentanyl testing strips, which is huge. If you are someone who happens to be using, or you know someone who is, I would encourage them to use those strips, never use alone. There's also like hotlines and stuff on here they can call, so they're not using alone, so they don't run the risk of overdosing and dying. This is really long. You have to do a little bit of scrolling, but this also has every single rehabilitation center within Wayne and Oakland County, where they are, how to get there, do they take Medicaid, is this private, all that jazz, is it restricted by gender, anything like that, as well as, and this is huge, free medical services. So I plug this all the time. I happen to know Pat's wife, the wonderful Dr. Shana Shetty. This is the CHAS clinic. It is a completely 100% free clinic. They will even come and do transport. They will send an Uber to pick up the client from wherever they are and drop them off to their appointment and drop them back off. And this becomes so important because it's huge to actually help the client build a network of support. Once they move in, they're not my client anymore. They will have a housing case manager, but they need these other things. They need to be able to check these boxes. When you're worrying about where your meal comes from, you're just going to keep ignoring that pain in your leg because you're too hungry to think about it. This allows the client to have a little agency back, a little bit of control, and actually manage themselves and get these things taken care of. Where is it? Is it on here? I think so. It should be. I also have all these places. Also, every single medical service on here, if it's not free, they take state insurance. I made sure of it. Medicaid, Medicare, all that jazz. These are locations for harm reduction. So this is the Detroit Recovery Project every single Wednesday from 1:15 to 2:45. This is where they're going to be at. They will give out long shorts, syringes, pipes, any kind of clean use harm reduction that you might need. This is also where Never Use Alone is, by the way. If you ever know someone who is using, please encourage them to call this. It's anonymous. They ask for location only because when they are unresponsive after a minute, they call 911 and assume that they have overdosed and are unconscious. These are mental health resources, dental services, eye care, pharmacies, and street medicine. Again, this is like CHAS street medicine, showing like the days that they're out, where they tend to be, generally speaking, the number to contact them, what doctor is going to be with them or nurse practitioner, as well as the fact that it's completely free services and they also have Spanish speakers, which is important and huge for accessibility. Where to get STI testing, women's health, medical funds assistance. I also have specified to the point of like youth specific things. So these are different community centers, places to get resources, like a girl like me that tends to focus on women and girls ages 11 to 25 who are at risk and pregnant or parenting, where they can go and they can get all kinds of help, whether it's just friends. They offer diapers, wipes, bottled baby milk, food and clothing, self-care kits, mentoring programs. They teach these girls about things like domestic violence. They teach them how to do CPR. They teach them about finance. It's important because I think sometimes people forget that just because someone is homeless doesn't mean every second of the day has to be about the fact that they are experiencing homelessness. They have a right to have fun and make friends and have opportunities for joy. And that's a part of why it's so important in this when I was making this to plug stuff like this, not just to take care of your needs, but also to take care of your sanity. It's good for the old mental health. But there's also education resources and substance use support. I put some fun stuff in here, like arts and theater, like Planet Ant and Hamtramck. I've gone to their shows before and I've seen incredible, like local, like new plays that were written by someone who lives in this area for like $5. And you could see it for free, or even apply for a scholarship and take a class with them and like make some friends. Again, the opportunities for joy are so, so, so important. There's also specific medical services, different transitional housing. Again, plugging street medicine. I need to put in a couple of those other ones in here. And then also there's a layer for LGBT friendly resources. I am sure I don't have to explain to anyone here, but I will anyways. The LGBTQ community is a small population, but when you consider the rates of homelessness, it is alarming. It is huge when you consider what a small fraction of the population that they are. And again, this lists every single access point, different community buildings like LGBT Detroit, the Ruth Ellis Drop-In Center, Affirmations, Trevor Space, Ozone House. This is in Ypsi, I believe, that targets 13 to 21-year-olds that are transient, and then different medical services that I know for a fact are friendly and affirming, because it's hard enough being homeless, and it's even harder having to say you're someone you're not just to get served. Different mental health hotlines, coming out support. Again, plugged some arts and theater, because I say this is like friendly fire. Gay people love theater, so I plugged it because it's something to do. Get your mind off of it, do something fun. And the biggest thing, this was kind of where I started to branch out into not just unsheltered people, but food pantries, because a lot of times they give stuff that my clients can't do anything with because it needs to be cooked. When we pass out food, it tends to be like pre-cooked canned stuff that they can just pop open. But then what do they do when they move in? They might not have food stamps or whatever, and we might apply with them, but that process can take time. And apparently the funding is up to be threatened. But this is also important. All these are sorted by city. And I also started to do this because I wanted to encourage anyone who needed it to use this, because this puts the knowledge and the power in the hands of the people in a way that is accessible and makes sense, and is very simplistic. It's a little bit busy, but ultimately pretty user-friendly. They're all sorted by city. And then this turned into something miscellaneous. Did you know there's 104 public schools in Detroit? I know, because I mapped every single one of them. And part of why I did this is because sometimes when we have families looking for placement, their kids have been through so much as it is. They don't want to disrupt them more and move them from their school. So then I mapped every single school so that we could see, well, where's your kid's school? Let's try and house hunt around here. You've got the voucher in hand, let's go. But then on the opposite side, sometimes I've had clients who are on the sex offenders registry and they don't deserve to be homeless either. And they cannot be within a certain distance of a school. So we do the opposite and say, okay, well, we know where they all are. Let's stay away from there. I think it's at least like 1.5 miles, give or take, so that we know when they go to look at this house, whether or not it's going to be approved, or if they're going to run into problems. But yeah, quite long, 104. And again, there are all kinds of different community care and resources, outreach centers and places for support for survivors, because I like to have what I call the talk with clients a lot, where once we're like about to move in, I will typically do this the day before, day of the lease signing. And I say, look, you've been through a lot of shit in the last couple of years and it sucked. You've been through so much and you came out the other side. You're going to get housed now and you're going to be stable. And one day you're going to have normal people problems again, and you'll be annoyed by the line in the grocery store, your annoying neighbors, and it is going to hit you just how much you've been through. You might notice a dip in your mental health. That's completely normal. That is expected. You are finally in the post of all this traumatic stress. We expect this. This is normal. And again, that's a part of why we emphasize the opportunities for joy and the mental health and everything else, because it's like, I am begging you, please don't die alone in that apartment. Please call someone, make some friends, force yourself to leave and go to an improv class or something for free that you got on a scholarship, because it's going to be good for you. But sometimes they also don't always come furnished. Some projects do, some don't. And the provider, it's dependent on donations or funding. So there's also like affordable shopping and stuff here where you can get furniture on the cheap, or food on the cheap. different employment, community action, Detroit Disability Power is actually on here. Because I also try to encourage people, especially once they're stable, to get involved with their community and play a role in this stuff and these things that may have hurt you or affected you, or what did you need when you were in this place. Crisis hotlines, utility assistance, legal aid, urban farming, animal care. McKinney-Vento's on here again. And then I also routed every single DDOT bus route. There's a lot of them. I didn't put every single stop. These are strictly like major crossroads, but we can hide the rest of this stuff and at least get the general idea of where you need to go. Like, this is where I am. Okay, I need to get on 38 Plymouth and go this direction in order to get to the soup kitchen. Excuse me, sorry. Because it also makes it easier because I put it all in one place now, so they don't have to sit there and cross-reference with the map on DDOT's website. They can do it right here. And so can their case manager, because it was actually, I forget her name, but it was a case manager for permanent supportive housing at Wayne Metro who gave me this idea. And then I spent about 20 hours doing it. And finally, and the most important thing here, available rentals. So my boss, Matt Tomlin, sources these from various like landlord contacts or websites or Facebook groups, but every single one of these little housing units on here is currently available for rent. He tends to pull these every week and a half to 2 weeks, give or take. It just kind of depends. But every single one is available for rent and every single one is voucher friendly. Meaning we can sit down and address all these things at once. And once the client gets matched, we can pull this up because now he's also started including the links. So I can click on this one here in Dearborn Heights and I can see pictures of it. I can say that I'm interested and that I would like to contact and I can see more details about it instead of just this. But then I can also see where it is, what bus routes are around it, where is the food pantry, where are the schools, and it's kind of just a one-stop shop, not just for the unsheltered homeless, but for anybody who might be in a little bit of a pinch. But yeah, I wasn't quite as formal here with this. I just wanted to let her speak for herself, and there we are. That's the needs management map.
All right, next up we have Amina with the Detroit Regional Partnership. Uh-oh, did we lose our Zoom? Where did it go? Oh, there we go. When you hide the controls, you gotta find them again. Here we go. All right.
Hi, everyone. Good morning. My name is Amina Abdur-Rahim. I am from Detroit Regional Partnership. So today we're just talking about our GIM asset map. I say we, I'm here by myself. So the GIM asset map, which GIM stands for the Global Epicenter of Mobility. This one? Okay. So DRP, I am from DRP. So DRP is the Detroit Regional Partnership, not the Detroit Regional Chamber or the Downtown Detroit Partnership. There are a lot of Detroit Regional XYZs. So we represent an 11 county region. And as someone who's from Detroit, it is sort of hard to be like, Detroit, and then say, this is 11 counties. So we try to be a single point of contact for foreign businesses or just businesses outside of Michigan or outside of our region who want to invest in our region. So yeah, we're looking for investments, jobs, and prosperity and a collaborative ecosystem, which is why we represent a whole region. There we go. So what is GIM? GIM is a smaller organization within DRP. Back in 2020, 2023, Jim got stood up within DRP, and it was a part of the Economic Development Administration's Build Back Better regional partnership. So we got a $52 million grant, a federal grant, to do the work that we do for advancing the mobility industry, which we already have a lot of mobility assets, but we really wanted to go into electronics or future mobility, not just ICE, which is like gas powered cars. So drones, EV, yada, yada. So this is sort of a timeline for DRP to GIM. DRP still exists, it's just GIM is within and staffed within DRP. So we're very young, we're only started in 2019. We went and did the Build Back Better challenge, we received a grant. And so $52 million, that did not all come to DRP. Within DRP or within GIM, there are 6 separate pillars, and then there are 25 different organizations. So we did not get $52 million. It went across the whole region. So GIM Central, we are the unified body that's responsible for reporting to the EA and everything. And then we have startup support, supply chain transformation, testing, improving, site readiness, and talent transformation. And these are all important parts of the ecosystem for building our ecosystem and for being an epicenter of mobility. So this is what I'm here for. This is what I did. The GIM asset map. So a part of applying for the grant, we had to compile all of our business assets or anything we thought were sort of related to mobility. So we put it in this little GIM asset map. Let's see. So has anyone ever used a web app builder? Yeah, okay. Ooh, this looks funky. So we're gonna close that. So it's a little bit busy, but this is our GIM asset map. And so let's give our spiel. This right now is 2019 to 2024 of business assets and investments, mobility specific investments in our region. This is in partnership with Mich Auto, which is housed within the Detroit Regional Chamber, and they do mobility work as well. I can click on them later. So the reason that we were using the web app builder or web app viewer is because of this info summary tool that they have. Just, it makes it a lot simpler when clicking through things. We want to move to an experience builder because web app builder is being retired. But for right now, this is what we're using. So, and then another benefit is when you're zooming in, you can change how many, you can see how many assets are within that specific geography. So these are some of the business assets. We have accelerators, co-working space, mobility organizations, testing and validation, and workforce development. And so we just compiled a list of this and added it to the map. So when we're talking to investors and they're like, what the heck is in Detroit? We can show them what is in Detroit, why you might want to be here. Or even people who are in Detroit who just don't know what the ecosystem looks like. We can tell them, you know, you're not alone. These are the organizations that are around you. And it's not like you're the only one who's doing business here. So this is why we add the investments, just so you can go through and see. We have right now, let's see, let me zoom out. It says 110 investments. These are just mobility related investments. So let's click DACRA, that was this. Come on, open data. So $22 million investment, created 18 jobs in 2024. And then you can click to the website and to the sources that we got quoted from. And yeah, so the way we source these investments, some of them are our personal wins from DRP, and then some of them are just, we notice from around, from Cranes, from CAR, which is the Center of Automotive Research, from anywhere else, from FDI, which is Foreign Direct Investments. So we pull together all the mobility related investments, just so you can see all of the sort of work that's happening in our region. And we try to keep it within 5 years. So this needs to be updated, whatever. So let's make it a little bit simpler. The part that is in collaboration with Mish Auto is our OEM and supplier layers, because why reinvent the wheel? They already have this data, and we want to match numbers always because we're using the same 11 county region. So when recently we had a supplier who wanted to be within 10 miles of a GM plant in Oakland County. So we're like, okay, let's pull this up and then pull the communities up and then show everything that's within this region, because they were not, they really wanted to be within 10 miles of this region. And then we also at the international crossings, the airports and the cargo ports and the Amtrak stations, because these are all important infrastructure assets for businesses. So other than those assets, what else do we have? We also have like charging stations, the queue line, the people mover, bus routes. So this is just what we sort of use. And for our business development team, sometimes they have questions. I'm like, open the GIM asset map and take a screenshot, because it's all right there. All the information, we already put it all together. Another thing that we have, you can filter by the extent in here. You can also just filter and just want to see the specific, what are these called? Asset type. So you just want to see the testing and validation locations. Let's turn it back on, and that would be helpful actually. You just want to see that. You can see, oh, there's some in Detroit. There are actually some everywhere. They're not just in Wayne County. They're not just in Ann Arbor. They're throughout our whole region. Another good thing about this is we can see where there are gaps. So let's go back to here. Let's see, I think we can do accelerators. We'll see our gaps. What did it do? Apparently I didn't click anything. There we go. So we can see, oh, we have 1,001, not literally, accelerator, incubators, organizations near downtown Detroit and Midtown within this little corridor right here. Where else are they? Okay, Ann Arbor near U of M, that makes sense. Are there any in Livingston County? There's one in Flint. Where's Lapeer? So you can see like where the gaps are and where we can do work to really expand our ecosystem and add organizations. And we ask people when we're in other locations, like, do you know any organizations that are happening here that we don't have listed on this map? We don't have any sort of like survey thing that they can add the business themselves, but that's something we're thinking about adding. I know, let's go to Mish Auto's website. They do a really good job where you can personally add the business, which is really cool, but you also have to go back and verify. So they do something very, very similar, but they cover the entire state of Michigan versus we just cover the 11 county Detroit region. So this is where you can add your business to the map. Other than that, that is the GIM asset map. Let's see if I can figure out how to get back. That's basically all I have. Except for this is our GIS portal. So we have 7 industry clusters that we focus on at DRP. Mobility is number 1. advanced manufacturing, corporate professional services, research, engineering, designing, digital tech, logistics, and financial services. Those bottom four are sort of our secondary clusters that we focus on, but those top three, those are our main clusters. Those are where we get most of our investments. So yes, thank you.
All right. So we are now, thank you to all our lightning talks. These are really great. Really, really fun projects that are happening. I also always try to remind people that some of our favorite presentations that come out of GIS Day are not related to GIS at all. So maybe we should just call it I Love Maps Day or something like that. But yeah, thank you all so much for your lightning talk presentations. We are gonna break now. And so everyone has a chance to grab some lunch, and then our keynote will be at 1 o'clock. I will encourage you all, let me stop recording.